the things they're trying to do by executive fiat, right? Like, am I wrong about that? Do they have the votes to do the kind of stuff that the cuts they're doing sort of by fiat? Do you think they could pass them in the House?
I think that remains an open question, Chris. I mean, I will just say I have been astounded to see my colleagues on the other side of the aisle capitulate time and time again. You could go back to the impeachment trial of 4 years ago that you covered so extensively. And clearly, if past is prologue, that's likely to continue. But I don't disagree with you that the flooding of the zone with these lawless and unconstitutional executive orders, clearly there are some things they would like to do in the Congress that they simply don't have sufficient votes for. And ultimately, that's why they've decided on this unconstitutional course that they've been pursuing that's been rebuffed in so many federal courts. But if tonight's vote is any indication, it's clear that Republicans intend to support President Trump every step of the way, irrespective of how much harm will come to the American people, as I believe that we're going to see if this bill is signed into law.
Okay, let's start this.
A party line vote. What do you make of the developments today?
Well, I couldn't agree more with my colleague, Representative Aguilar. Ultimately, my Republican colleagues are going to have to answer to the American people as to how they could possibly justify cutting Medicaid to the tune of $800 billion, food assistance to the tune of $200 million, all to pay for, in part, tax cuts for the richest Americans, billionaires and corporations. It's a betrayal of the middle class. And as you've noted on this program, not a single Democrat voted in support of this proposal tonight for exactly that reason. It's a reckless economic scheme that I ultimately believe will be deeply unpopular with the American people. And we're already starting to see some of that outrage in the town halls that have developed across the country over just the last few days. It's unfortunate that none of my Republican colleagues, at least at this juncture, it appears, are willing to stand up for their own constituents. But we'll have to see how this unfolds.
It's always dangerous to do budget math like live on the air. But something I think is worth noting here is that $3.5 trillion is to extend the parts of the Trump tax cuts that are going to expire, which are only expiring because they wanted to kind of like artificially reduce the size of them, right? So largely the sort of overwhelming benefits go to the wealthiest households. I think the top 5% gets about half of that value. Think about that for a second. But then because they want to add another business tax cut and more tax cuts on top of it, that's why they got to go hunting in the fields of Medicaid to try to cut that stuff to go more, right? Do I have that right?
Your math is spot on. You've articulated well precisely what this economic scheme seeks to do. And it's on the backs of hardworking Americans who rely on Medicaid, which, as you've covered extensively on your program, a lot of Americans ultimately rely on these programs. You know, you think about the Americans in Colorado and Washington State and California from coast to coast, each of whom are trying to access life-saving care through the Affordable Care Act or through Medicaid, who ultimately will lose their health care by virtue of this bill, if this resolution is ultimately signed into law. So the stakes are incredibly high, and you've articulated well why they are doing it. They are doing it to pay for, in part, because, of course, this bill would increase the deficit, as Tom Massey, a Republican member, of course, from Kentucky, has noted, and apparently Elon Musk concurred with earlier today. But it's purely to pay for tax cuts for the richest Americans. We believe that that's deeply unfair and imprudent, and we're hoping that through this process, at some point, Republicans will read the room and join us in defending working class Americans.
I should note that they have the number that they need, 217. So this is going to pass this budget resolution. We sort of expected all day that it would, although, again, I said this was Sahil. I think it's just important because one of the dynamics here is Trump has been acting as a king or playing the role of king. He called himself a king. Elon Musk has been playing the role of like CEO, like the worst boss you've ever had in your life. And part of that is because they hate Congress, because Congress, they don't really like the constitutional order. But part of it is because they can't pass the things they're trying to do by executive fiat, right? Like, am I wrong about that? Do they have the votes to do the kind of stuff that the cuts they're doing sort of by fiat? Do you think they could pass them in the House?
I think that remains an open question, Chris. I mean, I will just say I have been astounded to see my colleagues on the other side of the aisle capitulate time and time again. You could go back to the impeachment trial of 4 years ago that you covered so extensively, and clearly it passed as prologue. That's likely to continue. But I don't disagree with you that the flooding of the zone with these lawless and unconstitutional executive orders, clearly there are some things they would like to do in the Congress that they simply don't have sufficient votes for. And ultimately, that's why they've decided on this unconstitutional course that they've been pursuing that's been rebuffed in so many federal courts. But if tonight's vote is any indication, it's clear that Republicans intend to support President Trump every step of the way, irrespective of how much harm will come to the American people, as I believe that we're going to see if this bill is signed into law.
Now, didn't your president say it wouldn't? Hi, Paula. Didn't the president say it wouldn't interfere with your Medicare? What did I tell you? Yes, when I looked at the budget, I pulled it up, and there it was. What part of the budget that your Medicare, your Social Security, your SSI, your kids, your veterans, everywhere is getting cut. Don't fall that for that $5,000. That'd be about 2 years from now, if it ever comes to that. But give me a few seconds. I want to look a person up, and I want your opinion. What this has to do with our government. Let's see. My eyes are getting worse and worse. There it is. Okay, let's see. Come on. Yeah, right there. That's the one I want.
Force. Here's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't know anything about the JAG Corps. Let's talk about that, because justice matters.
They just saving money. Why would you fire?
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, you probably saw the new reporting about Donald Trump firing the 3 top lawyers in the military services, what we call the TJAGs. T, just for the word, the Judge Advocate General for the Army, the Judge Advocate General for the Navy, and the Judge Advocate General for the Air Force. The top lawyers in the military services who are there to make sure our military services, our Secretary of Defense and our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, are acting lawfully. So, of course, Donald Trump felt compelled to get rid of them. Let's start with the new reporting, and then let's talk about why, from this old JAG's perspective, I was active duty Army JAG for 6.5 years as a prosecutor, first in the trial courts handling court-martial cases, and then in the appeals courts handling things like death penalty and espionage cases. From this old JAG's perspective, Donald Trump's move is a dramatic miscalculation, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute, but let's start with the new reporting. This from The Hill. Headline, Hegseth. Fired military lawyers were potential roadblocks to Trump's orders. And that article begins, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Monday that the 3 fired Judge Advocates General, JAGs, were potential roadblocks to President Trump's orders. And the Hill notes, the JAG's job is to provide independent legal guidance to senior military officers in the Pentagon and on the battlefields to avoid potential legal issues with U.S. or international laws surrounding armed conflict. Okay, friends, so let's talk about what JAG officers do. JAG officers give legal advice to commanders all the way up and down the military chain, from the platoon commander to the company commander to the battalion commander to the division commander to the regiment commander, and all the way up to the top of the military leadership, and indeed to the civilian leadership as well. JAGs give advice on things like law of war, rules of engagement, the Geneva Conventions, and perhaps most importantly, given where we are in this lawless presidential administration, JAGs give advice on what orders constitute lawful orders and what orders constitute unlawful orders. You know, in the Army alone, there are about 2,000, give or take, active duty JAG officers trying to keep the Army on, you know, the straight and narrow when it comes to acting lawfully, not doing anything that would violate the law, would violate the Constitution. Across all of the military services, there are about 5,000 active duty JAG officers, give and take. In the reserves, there are thousands more JAGs. These are the folks who try to keep the military acting in a way that comports with the law, civilian law, military law, the law of war, the Geneva Conventions, rules of engagement, etc. And friends, this is perhaps the most important thing to know about military JAG officers. There is one bedrock principle about the rule of law that we are all taught. I was first taught it as an ROTC cadet when I was in college. I was next taught it in officer basic training. I was taught it again at the Army's JAG school. After you go to law school, you graduate, you pass a bar exam, then you enter Army law school and you learn about military law before you are posted up for your first assignment. I was taught this lesson over and over and over again, as is every other JAG officer across all of the military services. We must obey lawful orders, but even more importantly, we must disobey unlawful orders. That is a bedrock principle. Every JAG knows it. The thousands and thousands of active duty and reserve corps JAG officers. And if Donald Trump thinks he can fire his way out of ethical JAG leadership across the military services, he is out of his damn mind. And he knows even less about the military than we suspect he knows. We know how he regards folks who decide to join the military and serve a cause bigger than themselves. He thinks they're suckers and losers. He says, why would anybody ever do that? And he, of course, is the original Captain Bone Spurs, which prevented him from serving. Doesn't seem to hamper his golf game at all. But if he thinks he can fire his way through the thousands of JAGs until he gets to, you know, judge advocates general that he can appoint that will support him in the event he issues unlawful orders through his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he's got another thing coming. That ain't gonna happen.
I'm stopping it right there. Remember the other day I said he signed some executive orders, and the last thing the guy said was that judges, federal judges, they do not have the right. He only has the right to they obey his laws, not the federal laws, not our real laws, and all that. I know I'm not saying it correctly because I'm like really upset with this because people, I'm not gonna yell, beg, or any of you anymore. But no. Let's what he is doing is he's broke down all of our top people that take care of the United States, our government, our position. He thinks he's a king. He's even referred to himself as a king. If you do not believe, I will go and put that up. Guys, people don't are upset with me because I am talking politics. I'm not usually a politics talker. I'm just saying this is happening in our own country that he wants to be a dictator, a king. Now, he just promised he wouldn't be cutting the Medicare and that. Well, the video I just showed you before just passed on the budget for Medicare. Now, guys, honestly, he is taking away all the programs that are pretty much we depend on. And he's given the tax deduction from that money all the way over to his people who are the top 1% people. Tax cuts and all kinds of favors. How did you like it when he said to California, we're going because they got all of that fire. We don't have to worry about giving them money. They'll do whatever we want. The money that comes from the government is our God, that went right out of my head. I can't think what that word is. It's not a loan, but it's shoot. It is an allotment. A budget from the federal that gets to our states. I can't think what it's called. Honestly, I'm sorry. With that, he is just broke down our whole government system, and no one wants to know about it. No one wants to know. Why is this most important of our JAGs? Well, stop and think about it. If you do not have any military in through your, you don't have no one up there, no one as the boss. That makes confusion for down through the system of the military branches, military stripes and stuff like that. I can't think of what they're called. So if you don't have that, you don't have it in our government. You don't have it as our protectors. You don't have it in our FBI anymore. What's left? Remember, he got immunity. He did an ultimatum, like a bribe. Hey, Maine, you will do this or you ain't getting money. Hey, California, you're going to do this or you ain't getting money. No, come on. Who is Donald Trump after? He's a big bully. And the problem is, everyone, you need to contact your senators, your congressmen. You need to help stop this now as much as we can. Figure out some way to get that president out. And remember, we can't impeach him. He got total immunity. So for 4 years, we are going to be into a point, and this is only what 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. In 35 days, he's disassembled our whole government system. All those of us who depend on those checks from our Social Security is SSI, SSA, veterans. He is disassembling the veterans all the way down. He wants to get rid of that. Is there anybody out there paying attention? So I'm not going to do a lot. I'm not going to do these very often, only here and there. And I'm sorry for anyone who I yelled at before, because I get very passionate, very much trying to get the attention for everybody to understand what's going on in your own country. Even every other country out there is watching this go down. Now, Trump has he disassembled our whole government, our military, our everything. Okay? Don't you think we are primed to be attacked from other countries? Remember, if you lose a kid, that kid is not going to be. There's not FBI people to get it. Do you understand that? Do you understand that our kids, our grandparents are in nursing homes and all that? Nursing homes are going to close up. Hospitals are going to close up. Remember, our schools are going to close up too because they need that federal funding. And if you think I'm not telling the truth, please go look. See, they put that little dagger of 5,000 out on you. Oh, you're going to get 5,000. You know what? Did you realize that the amount for a year is going to be up to $6,000 to $8,000? Because there's not going to be gas really here, food, and all this. You are going to be pretty much out in the road. But that is my opinion. I'm praying. I honestly pray that I do not want this to happen to us. Oh, by the way, I was at the post office, and my local post office, and the lady says, "Oh, wait a minute, don't come over yet." And she had a stack of at least 30. Just that one window had 30 applications for passports. So you look like you're busy with those passports. She says, "Yeah, we average anywhere from 40 to 50 passports a day. How many Americans are leaving? Because they'd rather go to another country and follow their rules than live in this country. Okay, now this is Jags. Let me stop this one for this one. And this is when I might have to start this one over here. Okay, there we go. I don't know if I got this out. Oh, I'm sorry.
Senior FBI official forcefully resisted Trump administration firings. Points of light, my friends. Points of light. Let's talk about that because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, this particular corruption and abuse of power by Donald Trump is pretty easy to understand. Stick with me here. Thousands of FBI agents investigated the crimes that Donald Trump's angry mob committed at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, crimes we saw with our own eyes. Those FBI agents, those men and women, did the hard, honest, ethical, honorable work of protecting we the people and protecting American democracy. And as thanks for their service, Donald Trump is seeking revenge against them, trying to wrongfully and unlawfully fire them. I stand with the men and women of the FBI, and I strongly suspect you do too. Let's start with the new reporting. This from NBC News, that headline one more time. Senior FBI official forcefully resisted Trump administration firings. And that article begins, acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll on Friday refused a Justice Department order that he assist in the firings of agents involved in January 6 riot cases, pushing back so forcefully that some FBI officials feared he would be dismissed. Multiple current and former FBI officials told NBC News. The Justice Department ultimately did not dismiss Driscoll, the head of the Bureau's Newark field office, who is temporarily serving as its acting director. That's right, friends. The guy who just forcefully resisted Trump is actually Donald Trump's acting FBI director. My editorial edition. The article continues. The Senate is currently considering whether Kash Patel, Trump's pick for FBI director, should be confirmed. A longtime critic of the Bureau's investigations of Trump and January 6th rioters, Patel promised senators at his confirmation hearing that no FBI officials would be retaliated against. Quote, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution, Patel said under oath on Thursday. And just over 24 hours later, Driscoll notified the FBI workforce that he had been ordered to remove 8 senior FBI executives by Emile Beauvais, the acting deputy attorney general, and Trump's former personal defense lawyer. Emile Beauvais, Trump's former criminal defense attorney and one of Trump's current henchmen, who is apparently all too willing to carry out Donald Trump's improper directives to wrongfully terminate FBI officials. My editorial edition. The article continues. Driscoll also said he had been told to turn over the names of every FBI employee involved in investigating January 6 rioters. Driscoll stated that the 8 executives had been forced out, but did not say whether he would turn over the broader list of January 6 related FBI investigators, a list that he noted encompasses thousands of FBI employees, including him, Driscoll himself. A former member of the FBI's elite hostage rescue team, Driscoll promised agents that he would follow the law and existing FBI policies. And if he does, he will continue to resist, to push back, to refuse to carry out Donald Trump and Emile Beauvais' unlawful commands to terminate people for doing their job, investigating crime, protecting the American people. Again, yes, my editorial edition. This quote from Driscoll, quote, "As we've said, since the moment we agreed to take on these roles, we are going to follow the law, follow FBI policy, and do what's in the best interest of the workforce and the American people. Always," he wrote. And friends, this next passage may actually be the most important. In a message that circulated widely among Bureau personnel, an FBI agent summarized what happened as, quote, "Bottom line, DOJ came over and wanted to fire a bunch of J6 agents. Driscoll is an absolute stud, held his ground, and told White House proxy DOJ to F off." Legal experts said that few, if any, of the firings carried out so far by the Trump administration have been legal under civil service laws because the employees were not afforded due process. The Trump White House argues, though, that the president has the absolute right to fire anyone he wishes in the executive branch. The Supreme Court has ruled that federal employees have a right to a hearing before they are disciplined or terminated. Joyce Vance, a former U.S. attorney and NBC News legal contributor, called the firings illegal. Quote, "Career federal employees can be fired for conduct or performance issues, not because they failed to demonstrate political loyalty to the current incumbent of the White House," said Vance. "Trump ignored controlling law and regulations to do this. And unless the Supreme Court changes their interpretation, any firing of permanent members of the civil service should not stand." Of course, even if some of the employees sue and win, they said their public service careers have been irreparably damaged, if not ended. So, Acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll is standing up to Donald Trump's abuse of power. You know, friends, as a federal prosecutor, I had the pleasure, the privilege, the honor of working with the FBI. And I was uniformly impressed by the men and women of the FBI. And Donald Trump is trying to unlawfully fire them for doing their job, a democracy-saving job. And friends, here's one thing I can tell you about FBI special agents, the ones I know, the ones I worked cases with. They're not going to take kindly to Donald Trump's corruption and abuse of power. No, I don't expect they will just lay down and take it. Because to them, like to us, justice matters.
So, trying to find the right screen. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more I could do the topic on. Again, go look at your Bill of Rights. Go look at the Constitution, the amendments. Right in the Constitution, it does say he cannot take that 14th Amendment out. But he's not following any of the laws and regulations and policies. None. Now, the last time I heard, and that was a few days ago, there is over 80 cases. 80 cases of unlawful things that he is doing. Now, stop and think about this. The Supreme Court gave him immunity. So, technically, there's nothing we can do. However, we band together and we all get together. And this is not, I'm not saying being violent or anything, but we all need to get together and tell him what we want. Maybe one of you smart people out there will figure out a way around this. I mean, he's already threatened states that he's not going to give federal funds to. We pay the federal funds to get it back to be that it'll spread to help out our state, like roads, police, everything. I mean, it goes from there to all the way down to our school system, to our banks and that too. Because remember, banks are backed up by federal money. Think about that. Now you'll have no one to watch over your federal money in your banks. Okay? So don't look like you need to keep money in the bank, because I wouldn't. It's not guaranteed to be there. It's not now. But, okay, that's all I'm going to say tonight. I really didn't want to come in, but when I seen about the vote that they're cutting on Medicare, even though it's still in the court system saying you can't do this, they voted on to do this, and they won. And they won. So, say, and they are saying we're all welfare systems. Excuse me, I worked all my life. A lot of people worked their life and paid that FICA tax. So, well, it's becoming summer, so the snow removal and that won't be, but how about, there's lots of things that is going to affect. Okay. Well, much love, respect. I'm praying for a miracle. I did say that passports have gone up. And that a lot of people want to leave. And they're not just Republicans, they're not just Democrats. There's a lot of Republicans that are getting out. So, and remember, you can only be over at another country for so long. Okay? And then you have to be brought back. So, here's the question. Do you get your passport now and leave? And I'm not quoting how long it is that you could be in another country on a visa. But when you come back, because your visa's up, how bad it's going to be. I played Shirley Temple the other night. I love my service. But that single little girl saved America. And you're probably going to say, how can a little girl? Because she became the heart of us fighting for what we need to fight for. So, this time I am going. Much love, respect. I hope you all really go and take care of yourself and your family. Night, everyone.